One thing Sophie Cunningham won't do is play along just for the sake of playing along.
One thing Sophie Cunningham won't do is play along just for the sake of playing along. And in a league where loyalty often means silence, that refusal just cost her everything. The internet didn't just react when Sophie openly admitted something most players would never dare.
It's something fairly obvious. He said that top 8th graders would beat a WNBA team. Top 8th graders, not freshmen, not sophomore, not juniors, not seniors. Top 8th grade.
Say in public, it exploded after Michael Porter Jr. claimed that elite 8th grade boys could beat a WNBA team. Fans braced themselves for the usual denial, the predictable outrage, maybe even a carefully worded clapback.
Boys beating a WNBA team. Michael Porter Jr. took a lot of heat for that statement. And Sophie Cunningham was asked to speak.
Instead, Sophie shocked the entire basketball world by doing the unthinkable. She agreed. She acknowledged that the talent gap is real and that people need to stop pretending otherwise. And just like that, one of the most heated debates in women's basketball history was born.
Going after Michael Porter Jr., saying some questionable things and some things I'm going to poke some holes in. And of course, Sophie Cunningham taking heat from the old guard for saying what?
Michael Porter Jr. didn't hold back when he made his statement. He said top 8th graders, not freshmen, not sophomores, not high school seniors, 8th graders would beat a WNBA team. Let that sink in for a second. Top 8th grade boys beating professional women athletes. The backlash was immediate.
When did this tweet, can you scroll down? When did this tweet come out yesterday? I guess this started kind of hitting social media platforms, but I'm not kidding. I think maybe 35 people sent me this tweet yesterday. And yeah. I was like, what? But he said this kind of I feel like a year or
and brutal. Social media lit up with anger, confusion, and disbelief. Michael took heat from every direction, but what nobody expected was for a current WNBA player to step forward and validate what he said. That player was Sophie Cunningham. Her honesty set off a storm across social media and inside the league itself. Some praised her for
at least 4 or 5 months ago, something kind of regarding the same topic. So I thought it was just kind of resurfacing.
Mm-hmm.
But then I saw it and I was like, people are kind of going in on him because it doesn't the timeline doesn't make so much
speaking truth. Others attacked her for breaking what they called the code of silence. What happened next turned a simple comment into one of the most polarizing moments the WNBA has ever seen. Now, let's talk about Angel McCoughtry because she had plenty to say about this clip. She went after Michael Porter Jr. hard, saying some questionable things that we're absolutely going to poke holes in. And of course,
guys in basketball and one-on-one when he was in 8th grade and you guys were in high school.
I think, and this is my personal opinion, but if you are a professional football player, basketball player, really.
Sophie Cunningham took major heat from the old guard for saying what's true. But here's the thing. Sophie never planned to be at the center of this chaos. She didn't ask for this fight. The moment Michael Porter Jr.'s comments resurfaced, everything shifted toward her. It started quietly at first, just a few messages and tags. But within hours, her phone exploded with more than 30 notifications from people.
Really, any sport, but let's just take it basketball because that's where we're both at. To me, if you're in that elite level group, yeah, you should be able to beat the girls. I'm not surprised by that. That is not, I just don't get why it's continuing to get brought up. And if women are saying that,
sending her the same clip and demanding her reaction. She was in the middle of a workout when she finally checked it, expecting it to be some old conversation floating around again. Instead, she saw that the clip had gone completely viral all over social media, and the timeline was exploding with anger, confusion, and heated arguments. Sophie thought this was old news. She remembered Michael saying something similar about a year ago.
Do say that these WNBA players can beat a D1 college kid, can beat a high-level elite high school kid. A lot of fans in the WNBA say this, think this, believe this, will die on a hill professing this. That's why
4 or 5 months back regarding the same topic. So she figured it was just resurfacing. But no, people were going in on him hard, and the timeline didn't even make sense to most of them. That's when the distraction tactics started. Instead of addressing the actual claim Michael made, critics immediately attacked the timeline. They questioned whether he and Sophie were actually in the same age range, or whether the story even lined up perfectly.
Drumroll, please.
I mean, if they're future pros, dude, I mean, it just depends how big they are at that age. Like,
Well,
and the majority of the time, if they're going pro, unless you're a late bloomer, like you're already pretty big, and like, I mean,
No, they're massive 8th grade boys.
yeah. So I would say
That became the entire focus. They debated dates and school years instead of addressing the actual issue he raised. It was easier for them to fight the calendar than to confront the uncomfortable comparison. And Sophie quickly realized that these timeline arguments were only a shield. Nobody wanted to touch the real conversation. They did not want to admit that elite male athletes, even at a young age, have physical advantages that translate directly
I would
into
say that's like probably
Honestly,
true.
fuck, I don't want.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
probably true. Like I don't want to be unrealistic or delusional. Like,
Thank you.
men are just stronger, bigger,
Oh, shit.
athletic. Like, they just are a different build. And so if you put them up against females, I'm like,
She literally said, I don't want to be unrealistic or delusional. God.
dominance on the court. They wanted to avoid the obvious truth. And that's exactly why this topic keeps getting brought up, Sophie. Because a lot of ladies do say that they can beat the men. That's why it gets brought up to a certain extent. A lot of people say that WNBA players can beat a Division I college kid, can beat a high-level elite high school kid. A lot of fans in the WNBA say this, think this, believe this, and will die on a hill professing this. That's the reality. So instead of arguing about when Michael was in 8th grade, Sophie focused directly on what he actually said. She acknowledged that elite male players should be able to beat women. She even said she was not surprised by it and did not see why the topic kept resurfacing when the answer has always been obvious to anyone who respects both sports. But Sophie's honesty triggered a new wave of backlash. Fans who refused to accept reality shifted their frustration. They were not ready to hear a current WNBA player say the quiet part out loud. And the pressure around her comments only continued to build. When Sophie was asked directly if she thought an 8th grader could hang, if a group of elite 8th graders could beat a WNBA team, she paused for just a second. Then she said it. If they're future pros, if they're already big at that age, then yeah, probably. She admitted that she didn't want to be unrealistic or delusional. Men are just stronger, bigger, more athletic. They're built differently. And if you put them up against females, the outcome is pretty clear. She literally said, I don't want to be unrealistic or delusional. And the internet lost its mind. The moment Sophie stepped into the conversation with honesty rather than defensiveness, the entire tone of the debate changed. Instead of dodging the question or trying to reshape it into something more flattering for the league, she addressed the core of it directly. Michael Porter Jr. wasn't talking about random middle schoolers. He was referring to elite 8th grade boys who are already on a trajectory toward becoming college prospects or future pros. These are kids who are often 6 feet tall, explosive, and training at levels far beyond what most people imagine. When Sophie acknowledged this reality, she did something most WNBA players avoid. She removed emotion and spoke from a place of experience. She explained that any elite athlete, regardless of gender, should expect to dominate a less physically developed group. It wasn't disrespect. It was simple logic. And she made it clear that comparing NBA and WNBA athletes directly is pointless because the physical gap is undeniable. Her tone was calm, collected, and grounded in common sense. There was no attempt to sugarcoat the truth. But the backlash came fast because Sophie unintentionally exposed a deeper tension within WNBA culture. For years, some fans pushed the narrative that WNBA players could beat Division I men, elite high school boys, or even challenge NBA players one-on-one. These claims grew louder on social media as people tried to elevate women's basketball through comparisons that had no basis in reality. Instead of promoting the women's game on its own strengths, they created an illusion that collapsed as soon as someone told the truth. Sophie's honesty threatened that illusion. When she agreed with Michael Porter Jr. in a straightforward, matter-of-fact way, it shattered the protective bubble some fans built around the league. The reaction was not about her comment being wrong. It was about her comment being right. And once a current player broke the silence, critics scrambled to redirect the conversation. They tried to dismiss the question. They tried to attack the context. They tried everything except addressing the truth she laid out. As Sophie's comments spread, the backlash from the old guard of the WNBA community grew louder and sharper. These were the same voices that usually push a strict narrative about women's basketball, one that relies heavily on insisting that the talent gap between men and women is far smaller than it actually is. The moment Sophie refused to play along, they turned on her. Instead of engaging with her reasoning, many attacked her character. They accused her of being a pick-me, of pandering to male fans, and of weakening the league by acknowledging something they believed should never be said out loud. The criticism had nothing to do with basketball and everything to do with protecting an image. This group often reacts emotionally to any comparison between women and men in sports. They insist that WNBA players could beat elite high school boys or that NBA players exaggerate their physical edge. Sophie's willingness to speak honestly struck at the heart of that belief system. She exposed the cracks in their logic without even trying. What made the situation even more volatile was that Sophie didn't attack anyone. She didn't mock her own league. She didn't disrespect women's basketball. She simply spoke from experience. Yet the reaction she received was far harsher than anything directed toward Michael Porter Jr. That alone showed the deeper problem. These critics were not angry about the comparison. They were angry that a current WNBA player validated it. It felt like betrayal to them. The more they attacked her, the more people outside the WNBA bubble stepped in to defend her. Fans, analysts, and players from other levels echoed what she said, pointing out the obvious physical reality that elite boys grow faster, jump higher, move quicker, and develop strength earlier. But this only made the old guard angrier. They doubled down, claiming that anyone agreeing with Sophie was either biased or ignorant. By the end of the day, it was clear the backlash wasn't really about Sophie's words. It was about control. The old guard wanted to dictate the narrative, and Sophie refused to follow the script. The debate reached a new level of intensity the moment Angel McCoughtry stepped into the conversation. As one of the more vocal veterans associated with the old guard, she delivered a response filled with emotion, frustration, and a deep insistence that men should never compare themselves to women in sports. Angel framed Michael Porter Jr.'s comments as an obsession, questioning why he talked about women so often and implying he was insecure. Her argument quickly shifted away from basketball itself and into personal struggles that women experience. She mentioned playing through painful periods, dealing with pregnancies, taking care of families, and balancing the responsibilities of being both athletes and mothers. These are real challenges, and no one denies that women endure things men do not. But the way Angel used these points to reject a basketball comparison created confusion. She talked about headaches, load management, and emotional support rather than the athletic question at hand. Instead of addressing whether elite 8th grade boys could beat WNBA players, she reframed the issue into a moral lecture about respecting women. The argument sounded strong emotionally, but it fell apart logically because it never actually answered the question. Angel also suggested that NBA stars like Kobe Bryant and LeBron James never made these kinds of comparisons. But that point failed too, because those players never needed to comment on something so obvious. Professional male athletes do not spend time debating whether they could beat women. Everyone knows the answer. It only becomes a conversation when fans push unrealistic narratives or when a player like Michael Porter Jr. gets asked directly. Angel's criticism misrepresented why the topic resurfaced in the first place. Her emotional tone created a divide online. Some praised her for standing up for women. Others felt she avoided the truth and tried to guilt people into protecting a narrative rather than acknowledging reality. But what made Angel's comments even more controversial was that they opened the door for critics to compare her words to the actual behavior of WNBA players. Angel's argument began to unravel the moment people started pointing out what actually happens in the WNBA. She emphasized that women play through unimaginable pain, carry heavy emotional loads, and compete at the highest level even when dealing with physical challenges most men never experience. But the reality fans pointed out online told a different story. This season alone featured several high-profile WNBA players taking extended breaks, load managing, or sitting out for non-serious issues. The image of endless toughness that Angel tried to present clashed with the visible behavior of the league. Critics mentioned Satu sably taking time off during the season. They highlighted Angel Reese appearing disengaged during games and later sitting out the final matchups. These weren't isolated cases. They represented a pattern that made Angel's claim that WNBA players never load manage impossible to defend. The league plays fewer games, has longer rest periods, and still sees players sitting out more often than Angel suggested. Her comparison came off as exaggerated, and fans wasted no time pointing it out.